Welcome into the DFS Den. It's Dave Eddy here, a.k.a. Corporal Eddy on Twitter. Back again for another 2023 NFL Playoff Showdown video. This one's going to be for the Bills and for the Dolphins. And let's just start off with talking about, what's a showdown. So showdown is very different than the normal main slate that we're used to playing and what my videos typically are. You're going to have a captain spot where their salary is going to be 1.5 times what it typically is, so what it would be in the flex, for example. And then the points that they score are also 1.5 times. So you're not necessarily looking to get the highest scoring player of the slate in the captain spot, even though that's kind of the general thinking. Really, you're looking for which player for his value is going to have the biggest game. That's really what you're looking for. So yes, oftentimes that is the highest scoring player, but definitely not the way that you want to just exclusively think about that captain position. The other thing, you really need to correlate that captain. So traditionally, if you've got a normal pocket passer, if the captain is going to be, optimal for a quarterback, you're going to need 2 pass catchers. Now, typically that's a wide receiver or a tight end. Depending on the circumstance, it certainly could be a running back. But unless they're going to be mobile, like, Lamar Jackson, like a Josh Allen, you're looking to stack them with 2 pass catchers. If they're going to have a huge day, they're going to be bringing people along with them. Even if it is a super mobile quarterback, it's hard not to put him with at least one pass catcher, that is, because, you've got 6 total spots. You've got the captain spot. You have 5 flex spots. You've got to have at least one player from each team. So if you were just to run a, captain out there that's a quarterback, and that's it from that team, and then you got 5 players from the other team, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense. What you've got to do with these showdown lineups is you got to think, how is this game going to go? What's going to be the game flow? What's the most likely outcome? How do we get there? And then you build your lineups around that. So it is quite different from, regular main slate lineups. So if you're thinking along those ways or you're building along those ways, you're probably not going to have a lot of success. I do have a pretty detailed video where I talk about, how to build showdown lineups. So you might want to check that out. I'm going to drop it on the end of this video for you if you want to check it out. But let's go ahead and hop into, this particular slate. Let's start off with talking about captains. The captains that I'm going to be having in my pool, not necessarily who I'm going to play, but the guys that I'm going to be considering, I got Josh Allen, I got Stephon Diggs, Dawson Knox, Gabe Davis, and the Bills defense. Now, typically I don't go defense at captain, but in this particular matchup, I do expect that the Bills are going to win this one pretty easily and possibly by a wide margin. And, I don't expect a lot of the Dolphins. More than likely, they're going to have Skylar Thompson in there at quarterback. And, with having a guy like that back there, I could see a touchdown from the defense. So kickers, I will almost never play at captain. It'd take a pretty extreme circumstance for that. And it'd probably take a guy like a Justin Tucker in that circumstance to do it. Defenses, I can see a little bit more often, but typically, not going to. Even though the Bills are going to be in my player pool for defense for the captain spot, I probably won't end up with any of them, but I do think it's an option if that's the route that you want it to go. If I'm playing Josh Allen here, he is pretty mobile. I'm not going to force 2 pass catchers with him. I will make sure that I have one, though. If I'm playing Diggs, if I'm playing Knox, if I'm playing Davis, I am going to force Josh Allen in there. If either one of those pass catchers has a big day, I expect that, Allen is going to be right along there with him. So that's where I'm looking. I'm not having any Dolphins in there. I don't see the Dolphins making this game too competitive. Even if I thought that it was going to be a blowout, if the other team had a quarterback that I felt like I could trust, then I could see some run backs here. I could see the quarterback, I could see their top pass catcher having to play catch up and having a big game and being the optimal player in the captain position, even though they lose. But in this matchup, I'm expecting something like, 34-10 or something like that. I'm expecting a pretty easy win here for the Bills. So this is going to be one of those times where I'm pretty heavily focused on one side of the ball. All right, let's talk specifically here about quarterbacks. I will have both the starters in play here. Probably going to have 100% Josh Allen between just the flex and the captain spot. I think he's just primed for a huge matchup here. Miami's been very vulnerable in the air, and we know that Josh Allen can run against anybody. So between the captain and the flex spot, I expect to have Josh Allen in every single lineup. Skylar Thompson, it's hard. I mean, I'm not expecting a lot from him. He may not even get to double-digit points, but he's certainly in my player pool. I'll more than likely have a couple of shares with him. When I do, I'm going to definitely make sure that I've stacked him with a pass catcher. There's no way that he's even worthy of a flex spot if he's not also bringing, along somebody. So that's kind of my thoughts there. When we get to running back, this is, even though typically when I would have a game that I'm expecting to be a blowout, I would definitely be leaning a little bit more on running back, especially, just considering game theory is, Bills, let's say they get up, 24-7 at the half. They're going to lean on the running game pretty heavily. But this backfield between Singletary and Cook, it's a little too split for my liking. So I don't have a strong lean to say, hey, I really like Singletary with a lead. So I'm not saying I'm not going to play him. I'm still going to have him, 30-40% of my lineups here, but they're not going to be super heavily rostered on the Bills side. Now, on the Dolphins side of things, we've got an interesting situation, and you can kind of liken it back to, punting a tight end maybe, or punting a defense in regular main slates, but it's not the same here with showdowns. You're not necessarily punting sometimes, but I've got Ahmed from the Dolphins. He's coming in at only $200. That's the bare minimum. That's a stone min for a player here. And I don't think that Mostert's going to play. So I think it's going to be Jeff Wilson and Ahmed who are going to get the touches in that backfield. Again, I don't think the game's going to be super close, so I'm not expecting a lot of volume here from the Dolphins running backs, but it's not going to take a whole lot for a $200 running back to pay off. If he gets you 4 or 5 points, you're looking really solid for $200 because that allows you to pay up for, guys like Allen, guys like Diggs. So he's a guy that I'm going to roster very heavily. He'll almost surely be my highest owned player on this particular slate because at $200, he doesn't have to do much of anything to make it worthwhile for what you can do with the rest of your lineup. So let's talk wide receivers here. Wide receivers, I mean, my player pool is always going to be a little on the deep side. I pretty much don't go less than 3 receivers. A team like the Dolphins would be an example where maybe I go too deep because they're so heavily concentrated to Hill and Waddle. But even here, I'm going to put in Sherfield because at only $1,000, very similar to Ahmed, he doesn't have to do a whole lot. He puts up 4 or 5 points, and he very possibly is viable. On the Bills side, I'm looking at Diggs, I'm looking at Gavis, I'm looking at McKenzie, and I'm probably just going to stop right there. If you want to go, Beasley, or if you want to go Brown or Shakir, I guess, I get it, but I think that, Bills are just going to go ahead. It's a playoff game. They're going to lean on their dudes. They're going to put up a lot of points. And so, I really love Stephon Diggs here. But, I do have some interest in Hill and Waddle. I'll probably put a limit in here to where I only play one or the other. I don't really want Hill and Waddle on the same spot because if I have Hill and Waddle, that means I'm expecting, them to do some damage. And I would want them both in there with Skylar Thompson. It wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to have Hill and Waddle without Skylar Thompson. They're not both going to be optimal in the same lineup unless that quarterback carries them. So again, these are things you got to think about when you're talking about showdowns. It is different than your regular main slate type lineups. We get tight end. Dawson Knox is mostly where my interest, comes and goes. I will have some Gesicki. I will have some Smythe. Gesicki the last couple of weeks honestly hasn't been too terrible. 8.5 points, 9.5 points, basically. That's not too bad in the showdown. $4,800 for him isn't too bad. He really does need to get you somewhere in that neighborhood. So he has been seeing some volume with Skylar Thompson back there. He's got 10 targets in the last 2 games. I don't hate it. Dawson Knox is much more interesting to me. Last time they played the Dolphins, he had 8 targets, 6 catches, almost 100 yards, came in at 98 and had a touchdown. So I don't expect him to put up 20 points again, but this is why he's in my captain spot, is someone who is at least in my pool. He's interesting to say the least. And, for his price tag, He's a guy that I'm going to be very interested in. Might have him around 40, 50, 60% of my lineup. So interested there. And I'll probably sprinkle in a little bit of Gesicki as well. I think he does make some potential sense. He definitely is a guy who can, score you a touchdown. And in showdowns, a lot of times that's what it takes. When we get to kickers, kickers are a way to save salary. They actually score more than you think. It's not unheard of by any stretch for, kickers to get you double-digit points. I'm not so sure in this particular matchup that's what we're looking at. If anything, Jason Sanders, may be a little bit of a better play. And I hate to say that because obviously I think Bass is in a better position, but I expect the Bills to go down and score touchdowns, which is going to limit Bass to, most of the extra points. If the Dolphins get the ball down the field, they're probably going to sputter out and, you'll get some field goals from Sanders. But at the end of the day, kickers really come down to a money-saving ploy. We've got a med that we can play, so I'm not hard-pressed to force kickers in the lineup to save money when I know I can rely on a med. And with kickers, especially in a game like this where I'm not expecting it to be low-scoring and close, where we might see a lot of field goals, I'm definitely limited to one kicker per lineup. I don't want both in the same lineup. I'm fine with neither. But unless we're talking about like a 12-9 type game, I don't really want more than one kicker in the lineup. I'll just put one in at max and move on with my life. Defense is kind of similar to kickers in the same way that, I'm looking to max it out at one. If it's a, low-scoring game or two just elite defenses, then maybe I would consider two defenses. But typically don't play a defense in the captain spot. This is an example of a time where, I would break that rule. I am interested in the Bills. Not even saying I'm going to play them in any of my lineups. So we'll see how it shakes out. But, defense in the captain spot is possible, but not too common. And again, like to just play one defense at most, barring a unique circumstance. That'll be the case here. Probably going to be around 40, 50% of Bills and MME. I don't imagine playing any Dolphins, but if you want to get unique and you want to say, hey, you know what? Dolphins come out, that high-octane offense with Hill and Waddle. They put up points, and Josh Allen, and that Bills team struggle. Josh Allen can throw some picks. So all it takes is a touchdown on defense to make it worthwhile. So you could see the Dolphins defense, in play. But again, that's where it comes down to what's the game script in your opinion? How's the game flow going to go? And if you think that the way that the game is going to go puts the Dolphins defense in play, by all means, man, knock yourself out. When it comes to, showdowns, just about everything is in play if you think it's going to happen. It's the same thing with MME. You might have, a fairly iffy quarterback, and playing him in MME can make sense. You wouldn't want to do it in cash, but MME, anything goes. And you can say the same thing about showdowns. And so when you're playing showdown MME, really anything goes. So go ahead, pop on over here. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Turn on the notifications so you get an alert every time a new video comes out. I'm going to put the – oh, we're over here. Nope, we're over here. I'm going to put the video over here for the showdown slate that I made. Just some general strategies there to help you out. I appreciate you tuning in. Good luck in the playoffs, and good luck this week in this matchup.